Hello there, and welcome to Wrong Ways Colombia cast with me, Brendan Wrongway Corrigan. Today's guest is a fellow Irishman who has been calling Colombia home for the last number of years. A few weeks ago, he fell victim to one of this country's most feared attacks, being drugged by the mind-altering scopolamine, or devil's breath, as some people call it. Kevin McCaffrey, thanks for taking the time to talk with us. I can only imagine it's been quite a difficult few weeks for you.
Well, Brandon, first and foremost, thanks very much for contacting me and inviting me on your show. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and meet another fellow Irishman that's been living in Colombia. You're asking there, has it been quite an ordeal? To be honest, I would say surprisingly, and since I shared my story, it's actually been a really, really positive last few weeks, particularly since, I decided to share my story on YouTube and social media. The response has actually been totally amazing. The support people have been sharing, messages from friends and family members. And one of the main things that I've been trying to do is, of course, create awareness about scopolamine and fraud. Things will happen to me trying to help others. And on the contrary, it's actually been a really, really positive last few weeks, despite what happened.
Well, yeah, we'll get to that in a while, I guess. Out of this, there's like a silver lining perhaps in it. But just for people who mightn't be aware of scopolamine, devil's breath, or hyoscine as it's also known as, what exactly does it do to one, just in general, before we get into the specifics of your own case?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was all news. I wasn't 100% sure of the properties of this drug before, of course, it happened to me recently in Cartagena. But of course, since I fell victim to this, I did my research, read a lot of articles and watched videos and a few documentaries and testimonies, things like that. So basically, this comes from a plant that's called the burundanga. It's actually a really beautiful tree or plant, if you want to call it. Grows in places such as even Bogota, where you're based yourself, San Agustin. So it's something that's it grows commonly in Colombia and Ecuador. And it's used medically, in fact, for people with motion sickness, particularly people that are traveling on airplanes. So that's why it's used in a sort of a more positive way. However, unfortunately, it's used all around the world, but mainly in Colombia and Ecuador, as a way of actually committing crimes of fraud and rape. The properties, basically, it's a white powder, actually looks quite similar to cocaine, but the effects are, a lot stronger and a lot more dangerous than cocaine. So whenever a person is administered this, now there's different ways now that people try to administer this. The most common being in people's drinks, or you blow it, the criminals, they'll blow it in your face, or it can even get into the pores of your skin. It's so powerful. But basically it acts really, really quickly. We're talking 2 or 3 minutes and then you're just almost as if you're in a hypnotized state of mind. You have no idea what's going on. The person who's giving you the drug, you're in total control. They're in total control of you. Basically for the next approximately 5 to 6 hours. You will literally, it's almost like you're hypnotized, or you're a puppet to someone. You will do literally anything that they tell you to do. So pretty much everyone, if it's a minimal amount of a minimal dose, basically 5 or 6 hours, the person loses total memory of everything that's happened. And yeah, depending on the dosage, people can, have described, it can make you sort of feel depressed. It can make you feel nauseous. It can make you feel dizzy. In my case, luckily, I didn't suffer severely any effects, any sort of severe mental or physical trauma. I woke up the next day. But then another thing as well is it only stays in your system for around 9 to 12 hours. So again, if you're looking to try and get a test and see if it's in your system. So really, it's almost you could not have a more perfect drug. If even pharmaceutical companies could not come up with something that's used for these type of crimes because of the properties. It acts very, very quickly. The person loses memory and doesn't stay in your system. So yeah, that's pretty much a short
Explanation, yeah.
a short summary of what scopolamine is, or scopolamine.
Yeah, interesting. You mentioned like almost the perfect drug. A few years ago, I wrote a blog story with that exact title called "A Criminal's Perfect Drug." Now, thankfully, in touch wood, I've never had the experience of it, and I don't know too many people who have. But let's go into your specific case, because I know you've mentioned it on your own YouTube channel, and you've got a lot of hits, and a lot of people know that. But just the details of what happened. You were visiting Cartagena because you're based in Cali, so you were on a holiday, and this is where it all happened.
That's pretty much it. That's where it starts, Brandon. I was visiting Cartagena. So I'm a teacher. I've been working at a bilingual school here in Cali called Colegio Jefferson, where I've been for the last 11 years. And recess week, or midterm break, what we would call it, I guess, I just said no. I just was desperate to get to the beach. I just really, really wanted to get to the beach. And actually, another fellow Irishman, guy from Kerry, he was traveling to Cartagena with his girlfriend. He said, "Well, why don't you come along? We're going to be there for a while. Come and join us for a few days." So that's what I decided to do. And then basically, so I got there. Let's say the story of what happened to me would have started on the 6th of October, Tuesday the 6th of October, and with my friend, we were just in the historic centre, and it must have been, we were just sitting and having a drink. And just after 9 o'clock, a couple of girls came over and started talking to us. Probably just a few minutes. And then whenever they were leaving, one of the girls asked me, what are you doing in Cartagena? Would you like to meet up while you're here? And I said, I gave her my number. I said, yeah, well, let's see if we could meet up. And that was pretty much it. That same night on the Tuesday, my friend and I, we were staying in Boca Grande, which is the part, just by the beach there, for anyone that's been to Cartagena. And we pretty much had an early night because he was traveling back to Cali the next day. So my friend traveled early back to Cali on the Wednesday. So Wednesday the 7th, we're now talking. And I went to the beach. There was actually only one beach open for the public that week, because it was the first week after lockdown. So I went to a place called La Boquilla. And around lunchtime, the girl sent me a message on WhatsApp, and we just started chatting, and we arranged to meet later that day. So at this stage now, I had moved from Boca Grande, and I was now in Gethsemane, which is about sort of 5 to 7 minutes from the historic centre. So the arrangement was, we're going to meet at my hotel around 6 p.m., have some food, and then, we'd take a walk around the historic centre, just walk around. Because, I mean, anyone who's been to Cartagena, the architecture is absolutely spectacular. I've had been to Cartagena 5 times previous. It's, in terms of the architecture thing, that always stands out most, and, I really love about Cartagena. So, girl gets to the hotel just after 6 p.m. And so in Colombia, we have an ID card called a contraseña. Sorry, a cédula. Mm-hmm. If you don't, if you're waiting for your cédula, or you're getting it on a replacement, or it's expired, or whatever, you get what's your contraseña, which is like the provisional one. So whenever the girl gets to the hotel, she said, okay, we're trying to sign her in at the reception, and basically she said she had her contraseña, showed the contraseña, and then they said, no, I'm sorry, we need your real ID, or the cédula, or you can't get into the hotel. Now normally it's a valid form of identification, but I guess in these times of COVID, everything's a lot more strict. So she wasn't allowed into the hotel. So I said, look, okay, no big deal. Let's go and we'll look for something to eat in the historic centre.
Were alarm bells ringing at this stage with you, or are you just
honestly, Brandon, they weren't, because we've been sending messages, seemed totally normal. And because as well, I was being proactive in terms of, security, because by myself, I've been to Cartagena and people have said, be careful. Mm-hmm. So the girl even sent me a pic. I asked her to send me a picture. The fact that we're going to meet at my hotel. And by the messages that I was getting, there was nothing to really, obviously, maybe the fact that she didn't have her ID, but again, it wasn't something that was totally, that I was, oh my God, that's abort mission type thing.
Yeah.
There
Can I
was
ask,
nothing that
were you talking to her in English or was it in Spanish?
in Spanish. Spanish, man.
Okay.
I'm fluent in Spanish. Basically I started learning Spanish when I was 14. So yeah, talking in
Okay.
Spanish. And yeah, so we left the hotel in Gethsemane, walked over to the historic centre. So this was around 6:30 p.m. And so before going for food, we sat down on one of the benches. You know, totally public place, as I say, in the middle of the day. It's something I've done numerous times before. So we sat down on one of the benches. We started chatting, asked for a drink from one of the vendors. And then after about 10 minutes, I would say, um, she said, "Yeah, look, things were going well. Again, at this stage, nothing to be totally, to be alarmed or whatever." She said, "One of my friends is. I see a friend. I recognize a friend over there. Do you mind if she comes and says hello?" I said, "Go ahead, no problem." So her friend came over, sat on the bench. So it was me let's say on the left, on the far left, this little girl that I had met in the middle, and then her friend to the right. Um, and we just sat there talking for I would say another 5 minutes maximum. And that's literally the last thing I remember. The next thing I remember, man, I was in a taxi, had to be, hours later, very disorientated, dizzy, had no idea how I ended up in that taxi. Still don't know to this day. And the next thing, so this is whenever I start regaining my memory. The next thing I start clearly remembering from that night was getting to the hotel, and the taxi driver was a little bit agitated himself. He was like, look, this guy, he's been drugged, doesn't know, he doesn't, has no idea where he is. I've been taking him around the city, but of course, he needs to pay me. So this, whenever I start, eventually after a few minutes, start to get my wits about me, let's say. And so this was when I was there in the hotel lobby with the taxi driver, and luckily I had a little bit of cash up in my room in the hotel. So I went upstairs, basically paid the taxi driver. He left, and then I went upstairs, and then it was obviously still a bit shaken up and dizzy. So I basically just fell asleep on the bed in the hotel room. And then the next morning I woke up. Obviously, your normal instinct is to, you always check your possessions. Realize I don't have my phone there. I had my wallet just with my IDs, but I had no bank card there. And then the little money that I had, I didn't take too much money out with me that night. It was about 150,000 pesos. And then I basically, obviously, so I knew that I'd been robbed, but obviously, I needed to find out what the situation was. So I went down and talked to the hotel. And they were, from the first moment, they were extremely supportive. They lent me their hotel computer, so there was no communal area, but they lent me their computer. And so got onto my online banking and realized that there had been a lot of different transactions that had been made. But again, this was still like 7:30 in the morning. I was still half awake, and still almost a little bit dizzy, whatever. So at that stage, I just knew that there was these transactions, and I thought in my account that I had 41 million pesos. So I thought that around 20 million pesos had been taken, so about 5,000 US. But okay, so I knew I'd been robbed. The worst I've ever been robbed in my life. But I was, obviously just very thankful I'd woken up. I was okay, and nothing serious happened. So again, I was quite calm about the whole thing. As well, I knew what was ahead of me that day. I had a lot of things to do. So I called up the bank and cancelled my card. Went in then to the city centre, and got a new phone. Went to the bank, and it was an absolute disgrace. The bank from the first moment, and even till now, we're talking almost 6 weeks after the incident, have offered no support, have not apologised. Didn't show any empathy. Just from the first moment, it was basically, well, we're sorry, the conditions of your account. Basically, there's nothing we can do. If someone has used your card fraudulently, I'm afraid there's nothing you can do. All we can do is give you a new card. That's all. That's literally all they said. And so basically, they gave me a new card. And I said, okay, can you also give me a list of all of the transactions from last night, from the whole day? I mean, I didn't make any of these. I've been a victim here of fraud. And then so they gave me, the lady gave me a printout of all the different transactions. And I was just shocked to find that, there was 17 made in just over 2 hours. And then I also asked her, just to confirm how much money was in my account. And she said, Mr. McCaffrey, you have 40,000 pesos left in your account. So I thought at 40 million, it was 40,000.
So effectively 10 euro.
That was quite, that's been the most shocking moment, I would say, of the whole experience. Until, of course, what followed after that, and this sort of indifference and total lack of support from the bank. So I, of course, was just going, how the hell did this happen? Blah blah blah. Went to see the bank manager there in Cartagena, totally washing their hands from the situation again. All this would need to say, look, sir, sorry, we are so sorry what has happened. Can't guarantee you want to get the money back, but you have our full support here. Whatever we can do, just let us know. No, nothing of it. I've never received in all of my life of traveling, going to restaurants, hotels, in any situation, I have never in my life received this level of customer service. Absolutely disgusting. From the first moment right until now, they haven't even in any way shown any empathy to my case. Now, because I'm sort of, I'm in the early stages of a legal case here, I can't give the name of the bank right now, but absolutely disgusting.
It's one of the big banks here. We can say
it's all I'll say for now. It's one of the major banks, if not the most major bank in the country.
I think that probably says...
people probably have an idea of which one I'm talking about, but I can't sort of say it explicitly, at least for now.
Just one thing I wanted to ask though. Sorry, because it just came into my mind. You said you bought a new phone when you were in Cartagena.
Yeah.
Where did you have the money for that then?
Luckily, obviously I had my credit card upstairs. Okay, I wouldn't take my credit card out. I had my credit card upstairs, and that just like saved me, totally saved me, because I would have been stranded there in Cartagena, no phone, no money. I would have been in a really bad situation. But luckily, I had my,
and is the credit card with the same bank?
Credit card with the same bank. And incredibly, I only found out when I got back. Whenever I went to take some money out of, I was actually in the bank using my credit card to withdraw cash, and they even charged me for that. It's, the banks here, it's an absolute disgrace, really. So I definitely should have clarified that. That was very, very important. Thanks for asking that question, but Brandon, just so people were going, has he really been robbed? I had my credit card, and then so that was basically that was my ordeal with the bank.
So it's an ongoing process. Legally, are you on solid ground here? Because you do have a lawyer now working on this case. So you're
basically, man. I think that I don't know the law, but in any normal country. Obviously, after this, I followed this up with the police and the Fiscalia. That side of things. The law in most countries take a long time, but here it's going to take a lot. They've said there's no advances in the case. So I'm not really banking on. Obviously, I'm never going to give up, but I'm not banking on any sort of quick response and finding the culprits and the members involved. However, after having talked to the lawyer and the Fiscalia, which for those people who don't really understand what the Fiscalia is, it's an independent branch, legal branch of the government that they investigate crimes of this sort. So basically, pretty much everyone's told me that the bank has to have been complicit in said crime because of the amount of money that has gone out in such a short period of time. Because everyone, pretty much every single person I've told my story to, friends or anything that have accounts here in Colombia, say, look, if I try and make any sort of transaction that's any sort of amount, they'll automatically block my card or they'll call me or whatever. And the fact that the amount, so it was 60 million pesos, 17 transactions overall in just over 2 hours, but the vast majority was done from 9:53 p.m. to 10:01 p.m. There were 7 different transactions in this restaurant. So just to repeat that again, so people are going to seriously, it was 7 transactions in 8 minutes, almost 50 million pesos. And then 17 minutes after that, then there was another further transaction of almost 6 million pesos, 5.8 million pesos in a drugstore. So these 8 together, the 8 of the 17, that totaled almost 55 million. So that's the majority of the transactions of the fraud. The others, there were 6 made in ATMs. Then other ones were made in other drugstores as well. There were 3 different drugstores involved as well. So the level of how it was organized and the fact that the bank did not in any way send me a message saying, is this you, or confirm this. Obviously at this stage, I'm gone. I'm under the influence of the drug scopolamine, that I didn't have, at this point I wouldn't have had my phone. They're going to have had my phone and my card and everything, but they would have at least should have sent me a message or something, not just a notification that the money's coming out, but please confirm. So basically, it's very, very, very likely, if not absolutely certain, that the bank was complicit, that this was an organized crime between the girl that I met, probably her friend, maybe the street vendor, the drugstores, the local restaurant, that the bank. So these people obviously knew exactly where to go, so they could, basically use my card fraudulently in all of these different ways. Difficult, a bank can't really red flag money coming out of an account, from an ATM. That's difficult, and I get that. So for me, that's not really the issue. It's the electronic transactions. Absolutely incredible that amount of money was able to come out in such a short period of time.
Yeah.
And I just found out the hard way through a letter in the bank. So they responded to me saying, dear Mr. McCaffrey, we have investigated and we can confirm that you did not make the transactions. You've been a victim of fraud. You've been a victim of a crime. However, based on the terms of your account, we are unable to offer any type of compensation. So even in the letter, again, there wasn't even any sort of, we're sorry, this is very unfortunate, blah, blah, blah. So it really just brings into question the whole, the efficacy of the bank, integrity of the bank, or as I said, whether, so it's either number one, either they've got the worst security system imaginable on planet Earth, or they're complicit, that someone simply just said, look, I've got this guy, Kevin McCaffrey, we're going to go to these places, don't do the security check. That seems, that's what the most likely scenario is. So do I have a case, Brendan? 100% I have a case, and I will be fighting this, to the very end. So at the minute, I'm trying to reach an out-of-court settlement with the school's help, because, the school has a big contract with the bank. And so that's one option. The second option then is an official out-of-court hearing that the bank would have to respond within 3 to 4 weeks maximum. But that is a non-legal case. It's just where, they might offer something, they might offer nothing. And then the third option then is if it doesn't get settled in either of these two instances, then it would be a much longer legal case, putting everything on the table. But I just don't see, famous last words, I don't want to tempt fate, but how any judge could in any way say that this is not the most obvious case of fraud and, brings the whole banking system in disrepute.
Of course.
And, so, I 100% have a case. And the thing is, the fact that they've said in this letter that they sent me, I didn't make the transactions. And as I said, whenever you're under the influence of scopolamine, as I say, one of the first things I said is you will literally do anything that the person tells you. And there are cases, I've read a number of testimonies where literally the people that, the criminals, they will just say, okay, let's go to the bank. And then you yourself will be the one paying for things or taking out money So I was always worried that maybe I myself didn't, but obviously it's clearly here. The bank has told, and they've carried out their own independent investigation. I have responded by asking them, okay, so if I didn't make these transactions, who did? How did they make them? Give me I want the full addresses of all of these different establishments, and why the bank did not in any way, shape or form, try and protect my money. That's your number one job.
Yeah, it seems remarkable. I've only one little experience a few years ago with Banca Casa Social, which is still my bank, lying in bed at 6:30 in the morning, getting a call from them saying, have you been trying to make some sort of a transaction for 9,900,000 with some ridiculous amount of money, but apparently just under a certain ceiling, I read afterwards. But they called me and I said, no, I wasn't making that transaction at all. So, you know, banks here can do it. So this particular bank, obviously, as you said, seems like they were complicit, or the other thing is completely not up to scratch and then have the worstest security measures in place.
Exactly. So well, as I say, so that for either option, I have a case. Okay, so either they were complicit and they will go down for this, you know, or they just have a really, really, really terrible security system, and that, but they're also in, you know, that's also their responsibility. And who knows, man? You just know maybe nothing will happen, but you know, by sharing this case, then eventually something might have to change in the law. You just have no idea, because those are the only two options. They're the only two things, the only two possibilities, and whichever one of them is, I have a very strong case.
And you went to the police in Cartagena, obviously, when this happened, and the lady or the woman who you were with, she is well known, so it seems.
Yeah, man, this was the kicker, you know. So number one, you know, get a kick in the teeth from the bank, but the people that you would expect to help you out in any country, in any normal situation, is going to be the police. You know, they're protectors of the law. However, I went there. The police station is literally 3 blocks from where the incident took place. I went there with, you know, the 17 transactions, the physical description of the girl, the fact that, of course, her image would have been, you know, in the hotel, blah, blah, blah. And so I was sitting down there for about 10 or 15 minutes. At this stage, there was literally about 10 or 12 different police. I thought, okay, all right, these guys are on it. And then one of them came over to me and showed me on his phone, is that the girl that you met last night? And I was like, yeah, that's her. And it was a picture of this girl with 2 other women in face masks, in handcuffs. So the fact that obviously they're in face masks, they've obviously done it very recently because you know, current pandemic, and likely they're just getting away with it. And one of the bastard police officers, he just laughed at me, you know, as if it was like, you know, laughed in my face basically. So I was sitting there for probably about another half an hour, 45 minutes. And again, you know, I just assumed that, you know, they're sort of building a case here. They literally have everything there. I couldn't have given them anything more, you know, apart from, you know, there's literally no other information I could have given them. And so I went and approached them again, said, okay, so, you know, well, what's the situation? What can we do? And they said, oh, there's nothing we can do at all here. I was like, what do you mean you can't do anything? They said, no, you have to go to the Fiscalia. And I said, look, you have all of the, can you not, you know who it is? Can you not at least go and question the person? You know, no, we can't do anything here. So that was the police. That was my experience with the police. Absolute disgrace. You know, we're literally talking 10 or 12 cops. They knew all the transactions. They knew who it was. Yet apparently they couldn't do anything. So I just had to make sort of write up, or, you know, do my online statement basically for the case to be put into motion, I guess, is what, if you want to
file your own case, in a sense.
Exactly. Basically, yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, you basically have to do everything your own way. So that song by Fleetwood Mac, "Go Your Own Way." That's how it's been. You're trying to sort of fight the bank and fight the police all by myself.
Yeah, you'll be judge, jury, and executioner.
Exactly. Yeah. Executioner. So so then eventually, a couple of days later, they said, okay, so the case is in process. A couple of weeks after that, said no advances. They've said again, there's no advances. So I was like, no advances in the case. I just find it absolutely unbelievable, literally unbelievable.
Well, especially when they know who it is.
Well, exactly. And again, you know, can't know for certain, but very, very likely that the police, I'm not saying they were maybe directly involved, but they know who it is and they just turn a blind eye. They maybe pay off the police a little bit as well. This type of thing, it seems like it's very, very common in Cartagena in particular. You know,
the negative reaction from the bank and the inept police as well. Have you had any other negative reaction? We are in a land of, and I hate this expression, no dar papaya, where the victim gets blamed. Has anyone said to you, well, what were you doing with 60 million pesos readily available in your account? And why did you meet a woman on your own? Blah, 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 all these kind of things. I can guess some Colombians especially might be going, oh, he gave papaya.
Exactly, and to be honest, it's not a term that I particularly like because it's almost as if it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I was initially quite apprehensive about sharing my story because I thought I was going to be really leaving myself, exposing myself to this. Then there was a couple of friends of mine, a couple of my best friends. I'd say they pretty much were the ones that inspired me. Said, look, if you share your story, you can definitely do a lot of good and you can create awareness, etc. And honestly, the response has been about 95, 97% has been totally positive. Just simply messages of support from obviously, friends and family members. My friends have been totally, fantastic, here in Cali. As soon as I got back, a few friends took me out. One of my friends took me for lunch. My friend who's a chef, he brought me around some food. One of my best friends who no longer lives in Cali actually sent me an anonymous donation to my case of $500. Just people, just the amount of it's been really humbling, the amount of messages of support that I've received. Plus, then of course, other victims that have fallen, other victims of what's happened to me, either by fraud or scopolamine or both, because very often they happen. The two things at the simultaneous, because that's why it's used. They use the scopolamine to commit the fraud. So the response has been almost 100% positive, and I just made a decision there and then in Cartagena. I sort of asked myself as well, because obviously, it was a pretty horrifying situation to be in. But I just asked myself, and okay, how can I make this into a positive situation? And one of the reasons, or one of the things that definitely I could do is create awareness and help other people and let them share your story. And maybe, it's going to happen less and less if the story gets any sort of type of response. So that was always in my mind, and use it as much as possible in writing, in my own writing as a musician. Eventually, the idea is that I want to do a documentary about it. And as I say, I think I want to create a blog as well. So many people have been very, they said, thank you so much for sharing my story. I've been living with this for ages. I never wanted to share my story. And, all these messages that I've got on YouTube and Facebook, I did one in English and one in Spanish. So it's given people a platform to speak out against this. And as I said, create awareness. It's not because there's nothing really you can do regarding the drug, because of the properties. It's really hard to catch anyone that commits this crime and uses it, because it acts so quick, the person forgets everything, it doesn't stay in your system. So it's all about just creating awareness. So as I say, it's almost been, it's, despite everything that's happened, I'm already seeing it as a positive experience, because so many things have really come out of this, and it's made me a much more appreciative person. Something like this happens, it's almost like a shock to the system. But it can, and so obviously you can go one way or the other. You can go the really sort of dark way, and why me? Why did this happen to me? Why did I go to Cartagena? Why did I meet that girl? All of these things. You could go that way, and it's understandable. But no, I very just was determined. Okay, what can I do to turn this around? There is, of course, however, you're always going to get trolls. Okay, let's just call them trolls, because that's what they are. And so the first time I initially shared an initial video just saying, that I was almost like an introduction. I was robbed 60 million pesos, and because I was a victim of a scopolamine. And then you obviously do get a few negative comments, and it does initially, it's hard for not to affect, no matter how strong-willed you are or determined you are. So I just made a decision there as well. As like, okay, I'm just not going to engage with any negativity, people that are trying to judge, because I myself, everyone, you always think that would never happen to me. You always think that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've definitely taken from this, that I wouldn't have been aware of otherwise, is definitely, okay, you mentioned there about the money. I would never ever in the rest of my life leave that much money in an account. you know, there are other ways. You know, I would recommend anyone that's listening, guys, just don't have any amount of money, particularly banks here in Colombia. You just don't have any sort of type of protection or right.
Yep.
These various accounts. You know, I had heard about this sort of CDT thing before, but without really knowing it. But as I said, through all of this, you know, I've been becoming a lot more aware of finances and financial advice, all of these things. But it's all one of these things, man. Unless something like this happens to you, you'll never sort of learn. I learned the hard way. So yeah, as I say, you know, generally it's been massively positive.
Okay.
And as I say, you know, at the end of the day, life is all about perspective. I still walk around and I see people that are breaking their back around Cali for minimum wage, working all the hours God sends. And I mean, I'm still very fortunate in so many ways. I've got my job, you know, a job that I love doing. So many wonderful friends here. Obviously, you know, the unconditional support of my family, etc., etc. So, you know, I've been reflecting and seriously just, you know, being very thankful. And of course, something more serious didn't happen, because this is a very serious problem. People die from this. People end up in hospital. People don't recover from the mental or physical trauma. So I always have had that, look, nothing happened to you physically or mentally. You know, money can always be replaced. You know, I've already even sat down, you know, worked out a budget. You know, first time in my life, you know, living off a budget. You know, I'm going to do extra classes. I'm eventually going to try and save up this money, and eventually I will be able to save up. But as I said, definitely don't leave it, and don't trust any banks here.
Yeah. It's a fantastic attitude, though, that you have. You mentioned, by the way, the CDT. I only discovered that recently myself. I was only really in a position to put money into a CDT, but it is certainly, for anyone else listening, if they do have a few million pesos, worth locking money away for a while, so it's not easily accessible if you can do that.
Exactly, because I mean that's one of the very few positive about banks here in Colombia. You do get actually very good interest rates. They charge extortionate interest rates, you know, if you get a loan or anything like that. But for these CDTs, it's almost like a separate savings account, and you know, you get a percentage. It's generally around 4%. So if anyone's, as I say, does have a little bit of money and you're in Colombia, CDT is definitely the way to go. And again, in the future, it's something that I would certainly be looking at in the future.
Yeah, of course. And by the way, did that wipe out basically all your money completely, or did you have maybe savings in Northern Ireland, or what?
No, man. Like I came to Cali with you know, very little money. Literally, I had a few $100 in my account, so that wiped my bank account out completely. Well, they left me 40,000 pesos.
Oh well.
At least they left me the 40. Because I think actually after it gets to 50,000, you can't take any more out. So they left me with the 40. I think that was they got me my transport from the airport. I remember the program Bullseye. I got my BFH.
Okay.
But I mean, I still have, you know, what my pension. I mean, not everyone has their sort of pension, but in terms of my bank and my cash,
gone.
Yeah, totally wiped me out. But again, luckily, you know, one of my mates let me, you know, apart from the friend that sent money, a friend lent me 5 million pesos, you know, to really time me over, and that's been like,
wow.
Again, you know, all of these just examples of human kindness. It's been, you know, very overwhelming, and as I say, extremely appreciative.
Yeah, nice to know that it's out there, and not to be too facetious about this, but people who are listening to this on the podcast and not watching on YouTube, but in the background, Kevin has a Trainspotting picture there, so it's kind of almost seems like an episode, or like a scene from Trainspotting, this drug and then what happened, but you're choosing life in a positive way.
I'm choosing life, yeah, and I'm moving on, as he says at the very end of the film, Mark Renton, whenever he robs his friend. So he says, I'm moving on. You're choosing life and moving on.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, that's what you have to do. You know, there's no point in dwelling on what could have been, because obviously I know that you know, if we're looking back, you know, if I didn't go to Cartagena, if I didn't meet that girl, if I didn't, all of these it could have been avoided, let's say. But I mean, there's no point in, it happened, and you have to live with it and deal with it.
Yeah.
And as I say, you know, there's so many things I'm going to learn from the experience.
Yeah, great. As I said, it's a fantastic attitude. You're quite sanguine about it, really. And came into my mind an old saying from a former Irish rugby coach, Eddie O'Sullivan. He said, "You can't unring a bell, and once it's done, it's done." And as you said, you've got to just move on from it. But I was going to ask, are you disillusioned now with Colombia? But clearly, you're not.
Not at all. And it's just that this, obviously, okay, I'm disillusioned with Cartagena. I don't think Cartagena will be, I'll be wanting to visit Cartagena anytime soon. But in terms
You
of
won't be doing a Zach Morris or a Dominic Wolf influencer for Cartagena.
No. Yeah, I won't be. No, but I mean, in a serious, I absolutely love Colombia, and I'm very proud to call it my home. And this has not made me change my experience in any way. On the contrary, as I said, because of the response and support that I've got from, my Colombian friends and other people from other parts of Colombia, etc., has made me almost appreciate it even more. And yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that this is something that would happen in every country in the world, because it wouldn't. I'm not going to sort of give Colombia a bit of a buy, on this, because there's not a lot of countries where something like this would be able to happen. But as I say, life is all about perspective, and there's so many things that Colombia has given me. As I say, it's given me so many amazing friends, so many amazing memories of places that I've traveled, my job. I've been here 11 years, and I think I would be happy living here another 11 years. I'm really, really happy living here in Cali, and I've got a great life. Obviously, a lot of things to take from the situation, and I don't think any less of Colombia per se, because that's a bitter way. I don't want to I'm not bitter with even the people that did this to me, or the sort of anger or rage. No, I left that behind the same day it happened. Obviously, my sort of fight, if you want to call it like that, is with the banks and the institutions. That's what I want to sort of expose, and that's what I want to sort of bring consciousness to, the fact that we as residents or Colombians themselves, we basically have no rights at all from banks. They're corrupt. They have all of these extra charges. They're absolute, thieves in a way. And also, of course, the level of organized crime. These are things that I want to bring to the fore, not intentionally trying to bring more negative press to Colombia, but no more. I want to help people that live here or are coming to visit. But for anyone that's listening and you've never been to Colombia, don't come here. It's absolutely amazing. It's 100% the best country I have been outside of Ireland, and it's just totally amazing people, and the landscapes here. Obviously, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't have been here for the last 11 years and living here as an immigrant. So, as I said, don't let my experience put you off, but let my experience, yes. If you're coming here, and you really want to go to Cartagena, that's fine, go there. I'm not saying don't go to Cartagena, because there's a lot of, incredible things to do in Cartagena, and the architecture and the artistic side of it, the beaches, etc. But yeah, be very careful, especially if you're traveling by yourself.
Yeah, well, here's hoping that you do win your legal battle with the bank, or how long it goes on for. But you would imagine, hopefully, that common sense, unfortunately, a lot of the time it's not that common, but it will prevail, and you'll get your money given back to you. I'm going to tell you something that might annoy you now, but a few years ago, when Banco Santander was still operating in this country, it no longer is, I withdrew money from their ATM, and I got 2 fake 20,000 notes. And they gave me back the money. I had to go through a process, but 2 weeks later, I got the 40,000 back.
Good for you, man. Yeah, well, let me use that anecdote and that positivity. That is a great. Okay, it's only 40,000, but it's the symbolic nature of the of the anecdote. I'm going to use that. Okay, there is hope, but hope is obviously a dangerous thing. I'm not like I'm desperate to get this money, but I need to get this, because if I sort of put all of my energy into that, I am going to be absolutely devastated if I don't get the money. So as I say, I'm 100% going to fight the thing, but mentally it's gone. If I get anything back, it's a massive bonus.
It's a bonus, okay.
Because I've basically planned my life without that money. And as I say, I've created a sort of budget and whatever between now and 2022. I think doing extra classes, not traveling, and sort of, you know, being a lot more frugal, I can eventually save up that money, you know, in a couple of years. But obviously, I mean, if I get anything back, you know, it will be very, very much welcomed for sure. Let's see that bank balance going back up again.
Well, I'm mentioning these influencers again, but if they can give citizenship to people for supposedly selling Colombia to Colombians and all that kind of stuff, and then hopefully they can help out a man who's been here for 11 years and a victim of this terrible attack. Look, Kevin, thanks a million for sharing that, and your positivity, I think, like, or your reaction to this is something that we'll all take from it, because I think a lot of other people might have just thrown in the towel by now and walked away or whatever. But no, I think the attitude is fantastic. If people do want to get in touch, well, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave comments, of course, or do send us a tweet. My own Twitter handle is at WA Corrigan, and you can find my blog on Facebook, Wrong Way Corrigan, the blog. Kevin, cheers for that. I'll let you get back to the heat of Cali, and we've got the rain here in Bogota. And people are saying I do have my La Selección jersey on because Colombia are currently playing Ecuador as we're recording.
Yeah, we have no idea what the score is, so hopefully they're doing all right. We'll get the last sort of 25 minutes or so. Yeah, well, but yeah, Brandon, as I say again, thanks a million for inviting us on the show. If any of the listeners or the viewers on YouTube have any questions, they want to contact me, they can do it. My name Kevin at Kevin McCaffrey Music. You can find me on Instagram or Facebook, or just with my that's my Gmail as well. If you want to send me an email if you have any questions about what happened, or you want to share your story, because as I say, eventually I'm going to hopefully create a blog and a documentary. It would be very, very much appreciated. So yeah, guys, thanks very much for listening, and have a fantastic rest of the week.
Kevin, you're a star. Thanks very much for that. And from me, it's ciao, ciao.